We're in middle of Perek Daled. We are on page 16. And we're holding five lines from the bottom where it says, U'mi'achar shahatera mitzvesaha. It's always good to recap where we were, especially this week, because we weren't together last week. Thank you. So Perek Daled, chapter 4, talks about the levushim of the neshama, the garments of the neshama, the spiritual garments of the neshama, which are machshava, dibur, and ma'isa, thought, speech, and action. Because all of these faculties, thought, speech, and action, are means by which we express ourselves. When we say ourselves, who are we? I am that which I understand, my perceptions, my subjectivity, my biases, and my likes and my dislikes and my emotions, my feelings. That's who I am. How do I express myself? So I express myself to myself via thought. I express myself to others via speech. And then then it goes even a step further, and my actions reflect that which I'm thinking and that which I'm feeling. So they're vehicles through which I express myself. And as we talked last week, and normally speaking, in a human context, the levushim are important. Machshava, dibur, ma'isa, thought, speech, and action are important in as much as they express who I am. So when I'm in a relationship, all the actions matter because they express my emotions. If there is no emotions, then there is no relationship, no matter how many actions I do. An argument can be made that if I do enough actions, I can rekindle the emotions. And in that case, I'll rekindle the relationship. But if we're to honestly assess a relationship, and if there are no emotions, there is no relationship. There is no respect, and there is no feelings, there is no relationship. However, as we explained, when it comes to Hashem, it's a little different. That by Hashem, we connect to Hashem through the levushim, through our thought, speech, and actions. In other words, through actually learning Torah, studying Torah, thinking Torah, and doing mitzvahs, all the mitzvahs that are related to thought, speech, and action. And in that way, the levushim, the machshava, dibur, ma'isa, are in a way much more important than my feelings and my thoughts, because ultimately the way that I connect to Hashem is through the mitzvahs. It's through acting and through speaking and through thinking, regardless of what I feel, regardless of how I view things. That's how I connect to Hashem. And the reason, the logic behind this, the Alter Rebbe explains, is that the human being cannot connect to an infinite entity like Hashem. It's impossible. It's absolutely, the thought of it is laughable, is ridiculous. I don't know if we gave this example last time we were here, but imagine a little bacteria that wants to have a relationship with you. And he thinks to himself, how am I going to have the relationship? So if I behave nice, and I'm kind to my fellow bacteria, the human being surely is going to notice me, and surely is going to be very proud of me. And we're going to form some sort of meaningful relationship. And us thinking that we can have a relationship with Hashem is even more ludicrous and more ridiculous than that. Because after all, I'm infinite and the bacteria is infinite, as opposed to us and Hashem, where we're absolutely, there's no common denominator whatsoever. Yes.
But if you're davening, which is an action, but you're doing it by rote, and you're not even, you've done it so many times before, and you're not even thinking, does this really mean anything to Hashem?
So you're asking an interesting question. So you're saying that if I daven, and if I don't have kavanah, it doesn't mean anything to Hashem. And that's an interesting question because you chose davening as opposed to another mitzvah. For example, putting up a mezuzah, or putting on tefillin, or eating matzah on Pesach. And there's a difference. Because if I put up a mezuzah, or if I put on tefillin, and if I give tzedakah, or all the other mitzvahs that I may do, so even if I don't have kavanah, I connect it to Hashem. So what is the function of the kavanah? We're going to get to that actually a little later today, but I connect it to Hashem.
But mitzvah strichas kavanah. If you don't have the kavanah, you don't have the mitzvah.
Mitzvah strichas kavanah doesn't mean that if you don't have the kavanah, you don't have the mitzvah. First of all, mitzvah strichas kavanah is a machlokes.
Yeah.
It's not so simple. It's number one, and there are many that hold that that's only.
Why you need to do ma'aseh, do everything.
And there are a lot of limitations, but even if you say mitzvah strichas kavanah, sorry to get a little lumdish over here. That's a tanai in the mitzvah. Sometimes you can have a tanai that's ma'akiv. So let's say you're going to argue mitzvah strichas kavanah, which means, and by the way, also what does kavanah mean? There are two different types of kavanah. There's a kavanah klaus.
Your actions is for the intent of doing the mitzvah.
Okay. But I could do the action with intent of doing the mitzvah, but my heart and soul and my mind are all empty within me. In other words, I'm doing it, but my mind, I'm thinking about the baseball game. Yeah, I'm doing the mitzvah because I have to do a mitzvah. That's mitzvah strichas kavanah, mitzvah according to everyone. Davening is different. Because the mitzvah of davening, it's a little tangential, but now that you asked it, from where do we know the mitzvah of davening in the Torah? Where does it say to daven? Sorry? No, where in the Torah? Where do we find? The Rambam says, "Mitzvah sasei lispal." What's the pasuk in the Torah that tells we have to daven? Because it says, whatever, either u'la'avdei b'chal lavavchem or v'avadetem es Hashem elokeichem, depending on the different. Which means that there's a mitzvah to serve Hashem with our heart, and the Chachamim, the Gemara says, "Ezo aveda shebelev." What is service of the heart? How do we serve Hashem with our heart? It's tefillah, it's davening. So the essence of davening is serving Hashem with our heart. And the words are only the vehicle for that. In other words, the words are only external to it. So therefore, I believe it's the Rambam who says that someone who davens without kavanah ain't a tefillah. And ain't a tefillah doesn't mean that you weren't yotzeh. Doesn't mean that you missed out something. There's certain things that we say, for example, there's certain tanoim and tefillah that are ma'akiv, that if you daven, the place isn't pure, or isn't clean, or other things, so then you weren't yotzeh. Ain't a tefillah doesn't mean you weren't yotzeh. That means you didn't daven. It's a very different terminology that's used. Rabbi Chaim Brisker is the one who brings out this point, and he says that when you daven without kavanah, you didn't do anything, because the davening, the words are a vehicle for avodah shebelev. The mitzvah is to serve Hashem with your heart. If you didn't have your heart invested, then there was no tefillah. So in that way, davening is different than every other mitzvah. So you asked about davening, and you're right. When it comes to davening without any kavanah, you didn't do anything really. But the other mitzvahs, absolutely. If you did the mitzvah without kavanah, you did the mitzvah, you're connected to Hashem. It's not, we'll see later what
he had bare minimal kavanah. It's not, you're saying that he's doing it, so, even though he's doing it just like.
But that's not the kavanah when we're talking here about kavanah means with love and with fear and with intention, understanding the mitzvah. Very simple. As long as you did the mitzvah, and according to those Rishonim will hold that you have to have kavanah, you had a mind, I'm doing it for Hashem, I'm doing this mitzvah. I'm eating matzah not because I'm hungry, but I'm doing it because it's Pesach and Hashem said. Then even if you're eating the matzah, you're thinking about whatever, you're still yetzah. Yes?
When we talk about the garment, are we talking, which neshama are we talking, the nefesh behemoth and the nefesh halakis?
Right now we're talking about the nefesh halakis. The nefesh behemoth also has garments, and we're going to be learning about that in Mir Hashem and Perek Vav. Yes?
The rabbis taught us, hidavek b'ma'asav shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Rachum afatarachum. Who did? So the rabbi tells us you have to do what's how Hashem. So why you need kavanah? Why everything else? Because the rabbi said you have to do it because he is like this. You want to be serve Hashem? Do what he does.
We'll be answering that question today. In today's class, we'll be answering that question. Okay. Yes, you had a question?
What's our kavanah that we need to have?
The kavanah in the words. You have, in other words, a kavanah that you're davening to Hashem and you're asking for your needs, and.
But if you don't know the Pirush Shemilis,
so you can have a kavanah klaus. If you don't know the actual meaning of every word, you can have. So you have in mind that you're supplicating Hashem and that you're.
So learn.
Okay, but this is.
Yeah, but that's not the issue.
but he's right.
You learn. What happens? I'm asking.
You've done for 50 years, so you have to know what you're doing. Not 1 day or 2 days.
All right, let's get
So based on this idea
get tangent.
that when it comes to our relationship with Hashem, what's important is the action or the speech, in other words, the levushim. Not so much where your heart is and where your mind is, but the levushim is what connect you with Hashem. And why is that? Because I, with my powers, can't connect to Hashem. Hashem, in His infinite kindness, He gave us 613 tools through which we can connect to Him. And not because that makes any sense that we can connect to Him, but because that's a chesed of Hashem, that He personally inserted Himself in the Torah and the mitzvahs. And thereby allowed us that when we learn Torah and we do mitzvahs, that we are actually grasping Hashem and connecting Hashem. So we can understand something else, something interesting. We know that one of the principles of Yiddishkeit is that Zois HaTorah lo tehei muchlefes. That this Torah that we have will never be exchanged for another one. The mitzvahs that we have, that's the mitzvahs that are, that they were, and they will always be. There will never be another Torah, there will never be another mitzvahs. And the Mefarshim and the Rambam, they speak about this. And the question is why? Why is this such an important belief? Even if it's true, why is it important? Why is it important to believe that the Torah will never be exchanged? By way of example, if you have a parent, and when a kid is young, he gives the child a certain set of instructions which are age appropriate. Then as the child grows older, then the parent will revise the instructions based on the need of the children. And the instructions will be different. And then when the child grows older yet, then you'll have a third set of instructions. So what would be wrong with believing that at a certain point in time, the Eibishter will decide that now, based on our current needs, whether we become older, maybe we become lesser or younger, we need a new set of instructions. And as I said earlier, even if you're going to argue and say that this is the way it is, there is not going to be, Hashem decided that. Okay, I accept that. I accept this as a fact. But why is it a principle in Yiddishkeit? Why is it one of the 13 ikrim? There are a lot of things that we believe that aren't principles of our faith. We believe that Hashem created the world in 6 days and He rested on the seventh, but there's no ani mamin Hashem bara so'ilam b'sheishes yamin, that Hashem created. I believe that Hashem created the world in 6 days and rested on the seventh. It's an important belief, but it's not a foundational belief. In other words, it's not as if the whole body, the whole structure of Torah and mitzvahs is resting on that belief. We believe that Eretz Yisrael is a very holy land, but it's not one of the 13 articles of faith. Ani mamin artzenu hakadoisha. So even if you're going to make an argument and you're going to say that it is correct that there never will be a Torah, for whatever reason, we still need to understand, why is that so important? Why is that one of the 13 ikram? But based on what we're learning,
Well, it's during our history, since we've been in exile, we've been pressured by other people who told us that they've replaced, their religion replaced ours. So,
Christianity.
The fact that certain people or certain groups of people say something that's wrong doesn't mean that we have to automatically and knee-jerk reject everything because they're wrong. For example, some people who believe, if you go out to the world and people who aren't from, and you talk to them about Messiah or Mashiach, they're like, that's a Christian concept. We Jews don't believe in Messiah. Christians believe in Messiah. We don't. The fact that the Christians believe in Messiah doesn't change.
said that to me.
Right, but the fact that the Christians believe in it doesn't make it wrong. In other words, they have the wrong person, but the concept is correct. So you could say the same thing. They have the wrong. They say that Hashem changed the Torah, Rahman al-Islam, into the New Testament. They're wrong, but there will be one day. The fact that they're wrong about it doesn't mean that the concept has to be wrong. But where does the thought, the idea, the notion that Hashem could change Torah mitzvahs, or should change Torah mitzvahs, where does that come from? That comes from a misunderstanding of the essence of what mitzvahs are. Going back to the example that we gave, when a parent gives instructions to the child, it's because the child needs to behave in a certain fashion. The child grows a little older, and suddenly a different code of behavior becomes appropriate for the grown child. So some of us look at mitzvahs in the same way. Hashem created a world, and then He said, so here's an appropriate code of conduct for this world. If that's what mitzvahs are, an appropriate code of conduct, then it's possible that that code of conduct could one day be amended or changed based on the needs.
Make revisions
Can make revisions.
based on the circumstances.
How many times has the Constitution been amended? That was very good for that time when the Constitution was made. But then there's one amendment after another as the times change and circumstances changes and understandings changed and needs changed. But Torah, essentially, is not about a code of conduct to keep us in the straight and steady. It's not even about a code of conduct that makes us holy and spiritual. Torah is the way we connect to Hashem. Torah, as we're learning over here, Torah is Hashem's wisdom, which is one with Hashem, and the mitzvahs are Hashem's will, Hashem's ratzon, which is one with Hashem. For Torah and mitzvahs to change means chas v'shalom that Hashem changes. And just like Hashem can't change, Torah and mitzvahs can't change. The beauty of Torah and mitzvahs is this is Hashem Himself investing Himself in Torah and mitzvahs and giving Himself to us and saying, here I am, connect to me. When you do a mitzvah, you're connecting to me because this is my will. This is who I am. This is what I want. When you learn Torah, this is my wisdom, you're connecting to me. There are avenues of connection to Hashem. And just like it's inconceivable to think that Hashem should change, it's inconceivable to think that Torah and mitzvahs should change. So it's a paradigm shift in the way we look at Torah and mitzvahs. It's not about just a practical, way of behaving. And this also explains something else. Something which, for those of us who grew up from, it's something that we're used to, something part of our way of life, and we have no issue with it. But especially people from the outside, they find it very difficult to relate to the idea of how Torah mitzvahs is obsessed with details. Absolutely obsessed with details. So if I lit the Shabbos candles at 4:20, then I did a mitzvah and I accomplished the most unbelievable, holy, spiritual things that connected to Hashem. If I lit the Shabbos candles 20 minutes later, I'm liable to be killed for that. I'm a good Jew. I have good intentions. I want to honor Hashem. Does it really make a difference if it's 4:20 or if it's 4:40? So I bring in my tefillin to the sefer, and he tells me that with all your good intentions, and though you paid $2,000 for this tefillin, but unfortunately, one of the little legs of one of the hays got cut off. I'm sorry to say you haven't done the mitzvah of tefillin for the last few months. What do you mean I wanted and I tried and I had the best of intentions and I'm a holy Jew? Have I done the mitzvah? By way of example, if going back to the usual examples we give in a relationship, imagine you come home one night, your wife prepares for you a 6-course meal. The first course, delicious. Second course, third course. Comes to the main course, delicious. She made with a lot of effort and decorated the plate with meat and with vegetables and whatever. Filet mignon. Meat is delicious. You take a little of the rice, you go. The rice is missing salt. Have a nice day. The whole meal is worthless because the rice is missing some salt. Imagine that. But isn't that what Yiddishkeit says so many times over and over again? You did the mitzvah, you did it 99% of the way. If there's one detail missing, not that you did 99% of the mitzvah. You did 0 of the mitzvah. And that's even if it was by mistake. And that's even if it was because you didn't have an option, you didn't have a choice, you were onus, let's say. Which even though that we know that that if it wasn't your fault, so the Eibishter doesn't fault you for it. The Gemara says, "Kimanda Avid lo yamrinan." At the end of the day, even if the reason why you didn't do a mitzvah is because of an unavoidable circumstance, it's not as if you did the mitzvah. Hashem will reward you, by the way, for the effort. And Rahman al-Liba boy, the Eibishter appreciates your effort. But the mitzvah you didn't do. You didn't connect to Hashem. And why is that? Which makes so little sense. But again, let's go back to what we were talking about last week or 2 weeks ago. In human relationships, the main thing is the love. The main thing is the feeling. The main thing is the passion. The main thing is the respect. And the dinner is only an expression of that. So therefore, there was a little mistake, there was a little nothing. What's the big deal? The love is complete. And ultimately, the relationship is not about the potatoes, but the love that went into the potatoes. But as we explained by the Eibishter, it's not that way. You don't relate to Hashem through your love. You can love the Eibishter from today to tomorrow. That doesn't make a connection. Because you and the Eibishter, the gulf that separates the Gvul and the Bli Gvul, the finite from the infinite, is unbridgeable by our own powers. Me loving Hashem doesn't mean anything. The only way I connect to Hashem is when I use the tools that He gave me, which is Torah mitzvahs. And those tools are precise. And if I do it the way the Eibishter said, then I connect to Hashem. If I don't do it the way the Eibishter says, I missed out on the connection. So I'm a very holy person, I'm a very spiritual person. And I feel uplifted. But the connection to Hashem can only come on His terms, not on mine. And those are His terms. And that's a basic misunderstanding of the nature of our relationship with Hashem. That if we view ourselves as somewhat equals to Hashem, so then what really matters is our love. But if we're to understand that our love can't bridge that gap, and the only way we can do it is how the way the Eibishter, with His infinite kindness, how He invested Himself in Torah and in mitzvahs. And when I learn Torah, when I do a mitzvah, that's how I connect to Hashem, and that's why every detail matters. You have to understand something else. There's another detail over here. I need food. Because I'm a human being, right? I need food. The husband whose wife made him 6 courses, he needs food. With the salt, without the salt. How important is the salt? Does Hashem need your tefillin?
No.
It's only important because Hashem decided. And that's why every detail is important. Because it itself doesn't mean anything. Taking boxes and putting it on your hands and on your arm and on your head doesn't mean anything. It's only important because the Eibishter made it important, because Hashem made it important. And Hashem said it's important when it's done precisely the way I want it to be done. But this takes us back now, and now we look at it, now we have to, swing the pendulum back in the other direction. So why is it important to love Hashem? Why is my seichel important? Why is it important for me to learn Tanya and understand about Hashem's greatness? Why is it important for me to have feelings and passion and enthusiasm and a chayis and a simcha when doing mitzvahs? If the main thing is that I should do a mitzvah, then what's it make a difference? What does it make a difference whether or not everything that's going on is irrelevant? The connection to Hashem is done through wearing the tzitzis, through lighting the Shabbos candles, through giving the tzedakah. Why put in the effort? Why is it important? And what's the answer? The answer is that when I do a mitzvah, I connect to Hashem. Through my machshava dibur ma'aseh, through my thought, speech, and action. But am I connected to Hashem? Do I experience that connection? Do I feel that connection? Do I relate to that connection? The me, my feelings, my seichel, my midas, my understanding, my perceptions, are they part of that relationship or are they left outside of the relationship? If I'm doing a mitzvah, so I'm connected. So let's say, whatever mitzvah is, lighting Shabbos candles, I'm connected to Hashem. But if my heart is elsewhere, my heart is not experiencing this connection. My heart is not part of this connection. If my mind is elsewhere, then my mind is not experiencing this connection. So what's connected? My hands. And the connection in my hands is a 100% absolute real connection to Hashem. But the problem is, I am left behind. The external part of me is being connected to Hashem. How about the internal parts of me? My machshava dibur ma'isa is connecting to Hashem. My thoughts are connecting to Hashem. My speech is connecting to Hashem. My actions is connecting to Hashem. But where am I? When I understand the Torah, when I use my seichel to understand Torah, then what happens over here? The connection is made through the speaking. But the main thing is the main mitzvah of limdat Torah is in dibur. But then you don't make a berachas Torah. No, not if you're only thinking. Chaim heimel mitzoeim bepeh. The mitzvah is that you have to say it verbally. From now on, the ikar mitzvah there's two things. There's mitzvahs limdat Torah. There's mitzvahs yediyas Torah. It's two different mitzvahs. Yediyas Torah is in the mind, but the mitzvah of limdat Torah is speaking. So when I am learning Torah, I'm connecting to Hashem through my speech. When my mind is invested in this Torah study, because by the way, my mind doesn't have to be invested. I could take out a chumash and read, and I'm yotze the mitzvah of limud haTorah. That's the halacha that when you're reading Torah shebiksav, not Gemara. Gemara, if you read it, you understand what you're saying, then you didn't do anything. But Torah shebiksav, the Chav Daled, the 24 books of Torah, if I take it and I read them, even if I don't understand the word of what I'm saying, I was yotze the mitzvah of limud haTorah.
Tehillim also?
That's one of the 24 books.
I think so.
Yeah.
Actually, the Gemara even says that David HaMelech had a special request of Hashem that Tehillim should be considered like the highest level of limdat Torah. So I could learn Torah, and so if I'm reading Chumash, I'm connected to Hashem. I'm doing a mitzvah. My speech is right. Via my speech, I'm connected to Hashem. But when my mind is invested in this learning, then what's happening is that through the dibur, my mind is being connected to Hashem.
But you have to use your mind.
Yeah. When I do a mitzvah, and my heart is invested in this mitzvah, I love Hashem, then through the mitzvah, my heart becomes connected to Hashem. So what we have over here, through understanding Hashem, through investing our minds in Torah and understanding Hashem, and when we invest our hearts in Avos Hashem, Yiras Hashem, then the person becomes 100% completely connected to Hashem. The connection is through the levushim. And when the seichel and the midos are invested in the levushim of Torah and mitzvahs, then everything is connected to Hashem. Meaning the seichel and midas is me. Let's put it in simple words. My intellect and my emotions is me. Because it's me, it can't connect me to Hashem. My actions, the mitzvahs, connect me to Hashem. But not necessarily is the me completely in there. When you put the two together, then you have me completely connected. The connection is through the mitzvahs, because those are the tools to which we connect to Hashem. And when I'm investing my mind and my heart in the mitzvahs, then the me becomes part of this connection, part and parcel, and we have a complete person who from head to foot is totally connected to Hashem, from the mind and the heart and the thought and the speech and the action, completely as a package is completely connected to Hashem.
But you said the kiyum mitzvah is fully fulfilled, but you're still not connected to Hashem as far as your mind or the me, the ich.
When you do a mitzvah, you created the connection 100%. But that connection, it's not revealed in you. You're not experiencing it. Who is the you? The you is your mind, your heart. It's not revealed in you. In your experience, you're not connected. It's so to say, it's external to you because you're somewhere else. Your mind and heart are elsewhere.
But you have merits, you have schar.
We're not worried about schar. Schar is not.
You're saying, what is the consequences if you're not connected?
The consequences, whether you're connected or not. That's the schar. in in Chabad, the word schar doesn't appear very often.
No, you said
That's
you
not
have
the
full fulfillment of the mitzvah. You establish
full fulfillment and full connection.
No kavanah, he's thinking about the Yankees, whatever it is, a baseball game.
Mission
Now
accomplished.
You're saying there's a problem here. There's a serious problem here.
The serious problem is that the connection is 100%, but I'm not experiencing it. Me, my mind and my heart are apart from that connection, although the connection was made. It's interesting. This juxtaposition, what's more important? The mind and the heart and the spiritual service of Hashem, or the actual practical. So this plays itself out in the story of the Meraglim, the spies that went to Eretz Yisrael, and then subsequent to that, the next story in the Torah, which is the story about Korach. In Chassidus is explained that why is it that the spies didn't want to enter Eretz Yisrael? Not only the spies, the whole generation, they came back. We're talking here about spiritual giants. Moshe Rabbeinu didn't choose people who were who were lowlifes, and as Rashi says over there, they were ksherim, kulam anashim. They were men of stature, and in general, the entire generation of Eden at that time were holy people. They're called in Kabbalah a Dor Deya, a generation of knowledge. These were the Talmidim of Moshe Rabbeinu. They experienced, they heard Hashem by Har Sinai. They heard the Aseres HaDibros. And the silliness that they should think that Hashem can't. They experienced the ten Makkos and the Kriyas Yamsuf, and that they should think that Hashem doesn't have the power to bring the Yidden into Eretz Yisrael. Even for simple people, it's silly, and especially considering that these were people of spiritual stature. We've mentioned in the past that as Yidden we believe in Yeridas Hadoros. We believe that we don't reach the ankles. We don't reach the ankles of these people. In fact, there's a Gemara in Baba Basra, in the fantastic stories of Rabbi Bar Bar Chana. I don't know if anyone's familiar with them over here, where he talks about an encounter he had with the dead of the Midbar. And he talks over there about how tall they were, that he didn't even reach, he was able to, they were lying on the ground, and basically they were able to go with their horse, with the spear underneath the uplifted knee of one of them. And the Mefarshim explain, I believe it's the Marsha over there, this is talking about the incredible, how the physical height doesn't have to be taken literally, but this is a metaphor for their spiritual height, and how much greater they were than us. So how was it that they weren't ready to go into Eretz Yisrael? So it's actually the Alter Rebbe who explains on Kutei Torah. He says they didn't want to go into Eretz Yisrael. They were very happy where they were. They were in the desert, and they were surrounded by the Anania Kavod, the clouds of glory.
So
they had man,
right?
They were sitting in koil, precisely, but a koil that paid well.
Go work.
And their wives didn't have to work either, right? And everything.
You don't need new clothes.
Their clothes grew with them. They had water, and they had food, and they had meat, and they had provisions. They were all wealthy because they all had taken plenty of stuff and gold and silver out of Mitzrayim. And it's not that they were lazy to work, Chas v'Shalom. They were enjoying an incredible experience of Kedusha. They were davening and learning a whole day, communing with Hashem. And they're like, we should go now to Eretz Yisrael. We're going to have to plow, we're going to have to plant, we're going to have to harvest. It's ridiculous. Torah matahei Allah. What's going to be with Torah? And they said, Eretz eichelas yishveha. It's a land that eats up its inhabitants. In other words, the Eretz, the land, the earthiness, the Gashmias, consumes its inhabitants. We're going to become earth people. Instead of, now we're heaven people, we're going to become earth people. And they felt that even Hashem couldn't conquer the land. In other words, this idea that to conquer the land, and they should be in the land, and they should be involved in the land, and in commerce, and in agriculture, and still remain connected to Hashem, they said this is nimna hanim noise. It's impossible. Impossible. And that was an awful mistake. The only ones who got it right were the women. The women, because women are bottom line. This is what do you mean? You want to sit here, you want to daven, you want to learn. What is that all about? There are mitzvahs to be done. And the mitzvahs you can only do in Eretz Yisrael. How many mitzvahs are there that are tluyas ba'aretz, that we can't be doing over here, that we're in... And at the end of the day, how do we connect Hashem? Not by sitting and davening, and we connect Hashem through the mitzvahs. We got to go into Eretz Yisrael.
But history shows that they were right. Once they came into the land, they turned away.
Some of them, some generations. You can't make a general rule. But yes, definitely the land came with challenges. But there were also generations that were holy. Yeshua's generation was holy. In other words, we have the ability. A challenge means that sometimes we might fail, but we definitely have the ability to be in the land and still be holy people. And the interesting thing is that when viewed from this way, what Hashem told them wasn't a punishment. Hashem said, you guys want to stay in the desert? You don't want to go into Eretz Yisrael? Okay. Have it your way. Okay? Stay here. And Taka, they stayed there for another 40 years. It was less of a punishment than they were saying, I'm disappointed. That's not the way it should be. You should want to do what I wanted you to do, which is mitzvahs, and that's the ultimate connection to Hashem. But at the same time, if that's what you want, sometimes the Eibishter gives ratzon that which they desire. What's the next story? The next story says in the Torah is that Korach comes. And what is Korach's argument? Korach comes to tell Moshe and says, I don't get it. We're all holy. Hashem is with us, is amongst us all. Why are you? Who are you to elevate yourself and to think that you're so great and holy? Meaning to say, Moshe, you just got all upset at us, and you said that we have to go into Eretz Yisrael. And the main thing is to go into Eretz Yisrael. Why? Because Hamaiso Iker. The main thing is the deed. The main thing is the mitzvah. If the main thing is the mitzvah, if the main thing is the giving the tzedakah and the putting on tefillin, then who are you? What makes you greater than every other yid? What? Sounds
like a legitimate.
That's a legitimate complaint, right? Yeah. And Korach wasn't stama garnished. Korach was it says Menaisei Aaron. He was one of the people carried the Aaron. He was a navi.
He was very high, yeah.
And he had a legitimate complaint. You're telling me that we shouldn't be here because it's not all about attaining those spiritual heights. Because as long as you're attaining spiritual heights, you're all living within yourself. The only way to truly connect Hashem is the actual Maisa mitzvah is doing something. If so, then there should be no hierarchy. Because when it comes to Kiyum HaMitzvahs, when it comes to actually doing a mitzvah, every single yid is the same. Every single yid puts on tefillin. He says the potential to put on tefillin. And to give tzedakah. And to do every other, put up a mezuzah and do all the other mitzvahs and bench or whatever else it may be. This was taking it to the other extreme. So the Meraglim, they wanted to live in they wanted to live in the world of spirituality. And when that was rejected, Rabbi Moshe comes along and says, okay, then let's live in the world of the material. It's all about the action. And Moshe's response was, Boiker v'yoda Hashem. In the morning, Hashem will let us know. And the Rebbe explains, what does Boiker v'yoda? What's the morning have to do with this? Morning is when it becomes light. And this Moshe was alluding to the fact that you can be connected to Hashem, but you can be in the dark. Be connected to Hashem. I told you the story about the goat last week.
What?
Did I tell you the story about the goat?
No.
No? There was this, you know that there's a halacha that when an animal gives birth to a bechor, if it's owned by a yid, so in times of the Beis HaMikdash, so the animal had to be brought to the Beis HaMikdash and brought as a carbon, and it was eaten by the kohen. But today, there is no Beis HaMikdash, there is no karbanis. So theoretically, if a yid owns a cattle, an animal, which has a bechor, it's a problem. Practically, it doesn't happen because there's, just like we do mechiras chametz, so there's a shtar, you sell a portion of the mother to a goy. And as long as a goy has a small percentage, owns a small percentage, then the baby already is in the bechor. But what happened in Lubavitch, in the city of Lubavitch, there was a mistake, and a bechor was born to a Jew, an animal bechor. Now, according to halacha, this animal, you can't do anything with it. You can't work with it. You can't shear it. You can't milk it. You have to let it run wild. And if and when it gets a mum, if and when it gets a a blemish which invalidates it from being a carbon. So then you could shecht it and eat it. But till then, there's nothing you can do with it because it's holy. Yeah, it's kedusha. So the story is told that there was a chassid who actually later on became a famous chassid. But when he was younger, he was a troublemaker. Happens a lot of times. You know, the little troublemakers, they become mentioned and they use that energy in a positive way. So he thought he was going to have fun with this goat. Now this goat stunk because it wasn't washed, it wasn't shorn, so it was running everywhere, and its wool got filled with dirt and with whatever. And he decided that he's bringing this goat into the base medrash in Lubavitch in Yeshiva to have a little fun. And he did that. He got kicked out of Yeshiva for that also. But as the story is told, he got back in eventually. But as the story is told, when the Mashpia saw the goat, the Mashpia told the goat, Sigala, Sigala. Goat, heilig bist du, aber stinken stinkst du. You may be holy, but you stink. And what Moshe was telling Kairach is, you may be holy when you do mitzvahs, but it's dark. The holiness is not expressed within. You need a Moshe Rabbeinu. You're coming and saying you don't need a Moshe Rabbeinu. You need a Moshe Rabbeinu to make it light. You need a tzaddik. You need a hierarchy, because you have to realize that there's people who are higher than you who can elevate you and make that the entirety of you should become part of and imbued in that relationship with Hashem. And that's the two extremes that we have over here. On the one hand, my mind and my heart on their own are meaningless. They don't connect me to Hashem. When I say meaningless, if I have a refined mind and heart, then I'm a wonderful, beautiful human being. But to Hashem, there's no connection to Hashem. My mind and heart don't connect me to Hashem. I connect to Hashem through the mitzvahs. But when my mind and heart are invested in the mitzvahs, then all of me is connected to Hashem. Not only is my hands connected, my feet connected, but all of me becomes light, oyer, and all of me becomes connected to Hashem. And that's the juxtaposition. And you know, in Lubavitch, so we're into Mivtzoyim. You know, the Rebbe says, you see a Jew, he didn't do a mitzvah, go do a mitzvah with him. It's Chanukah, go light Chanukah menorah with another Yid. Go put on film with another Yid. Go, whatever it may be, mezuzah, whatever it may be, kashrus, any small mitzvah. And there's some people who look at the Chassidus Chabad and this deep, the preoccupation with the mind and with the heart, and understanding Hashem, and that understanding should become part of the person's emotions, and should lead to a fear of Hashem and a love of Hashem. And then they see they're going and putting on film with a Yid. I'm like, they don't see where does this Chabad, which is mind and heart, how does that translate into knocking a mezuzah on someone else's door? A person who, when that person doesn't have no mind and no heart in terms of Torah mitzvahs, how's that compatible with Chabad? But the answer to that is in this chapter. Of course you have to have Chabad. But Chabad is step number 2. That's not step number 1. Step number 1 is establish the connection. And the connection is through the mitzvah. And that connection is intrinsically valuable. Meaning, a mitzvah without a mezuzah, without the kavanah is valuable. The kavanah without the mezuzah is not. However, once you have the mitzvah, the ultimate ideal is that to have the kavanah, the intention and the ava and the love for Hashem and the understanding, all that should be in there also, and thereby the entirety of the person is connected to Hashem. And with that, let's learn inside a little. Again, page 16. 5 lines from the bottom. The last word in the line, Umeachar. Excuse me. Umeachar, and because Shateiru mitzveseham malbishim kol eser bechinas hanefesh. When the Torah and mitzvahs encompass all the 10 components of the soul, in other words, the 3 components, intellectual faculties, and the 7 emotional faculties of the neshama are invested in Torah and mitzvahs. And all 613 components of the neshama are invested in Torah and mitzvahs. Mireisha vad ragla, from the head of the neshama to the foot of the neshama. Harikula tzrura b'tzreir hachayim es Hashem mamish. Then the entirety of the neshama is tied up and connected in the bundle of life together with Hashem, literally. V'eir Hashem mamish, and the light of Hashem literally makifa, encompasses the neshama, umalbisha, and encloses the neshama, mireisha va'ad ragla, from the person's head to the person's foot. This is the Torah that we have. This is the kindness that Hashem did for us. Imagine that we can be connected to Hashem with every fiber of our soul. Our seichel, our midas, our machshava, the bermaisa, He gave us avas olam aftana with incredible love. He gave us Torah and mitzvahs whereby we can connect to Him completely and totally. As it says in the pasuk, Tzuri echsaboy, Hashem is my rock, I take shelter in Him. In other words, my entirety is encompassed and sheltered by Hashem. Uksiv, and it says, Katsina, like a shield, Ratzain, Hashem's goodwill ta'atrenu surrounds us. This is a reference to Hashem's will and His wisdom, which is in Torah and mitzvahs, which encompasses the person who is involved in Torah and mitzvahs. Hashem's will and wisdom, which, as we learned in the earlier chapters, are absolutely and totally indivisible and one with Hashem Himself. And with this, the Alter Rebbe is going to explain. By the way, you have the answer to your question? Oh, who's the one who's asked the question? I said it's going to be answered today. You have the answer to your question? Good. Now we're going to turn to your, where you talked about schar. So the Alter Rebbe is going to turn, it says in Pirkei Avos, and therefore, Chazal tell us, Yafe Shah Achas, better 1 hour of tshuva, ma'asim tovim, of tshuva and good deeds, ba'elam hazan, b'kol chai elam haba, more than the entire world to come. This is strange. Understand? There are people who live their whole world over here to get elam haba, for the schar. And comes along Pirkei Avos and says, you're messed up. You have your priorities messed up. This world is better. It's better to spend an hour doing an hour, if you translate, of Torah mitzvahs over here, is better than the whole Olam Haba. We're not comparing apples to apples. We're not saying 1 hour of Torah mitzvahs is better than 1 hour of Olam Haba. 1 hour of Torah mitzvahs. If we'd really understand this, we'd possibly be grabbing Torah mitzvahs wherever we could. 1 hour of Torah mitzvahs is better than the whole Olam Haba. But how does that make sense? And the Mishnah itself over there says that Yafe Shah Achas Shal Kairas Ruach Ba'elam Haba, the 1 hour of pleasure in the next world is better than the entire pleasure in this world. 1 hour pleasure in Elam Haba is better than everything here. So what does it mean that 1 hour here is better, of Torah mitzvahs is better than Elam Haba?
In order to connect in Elam Haba, you have to do the Torah mitzvahs in this world.
That's a nice shot, but that's not what it says. It doesn't say that. It says 1 hour of Torah mitzvahs over here is better than the whole Elam Haba. That's what it says. And it means that.
How's that possible?
Ki Elam Haba, in other words, in terms of the pleasure you can get in Elam Haba that you're going to experience, Elam Haba is much greater. But Elam Haba, what does it say about Elam Haba? Hu shenehen in miziv hashchina. What is the pleasure in Elam Haba? Is that we bask in the radiance of Hashem. We enjoy our relationship with Hashem. Shutainu gasaga, that's the pleasure we take in understanding Hashem. That's what they do. They understand Hashem. It's something we can't relate to, really. To understand that this is the greatest pleasure is understanding Hashem. But there are a lot of things we can't relate to. We're in physical bodies. Just like a blind person can't relate to colors, we can't relate to the pleasure in Elam Haba. But we know that it's a pleasure which is incredible. At the same time, however, it is impossible for any creation, even from the higher worlds, to understand all they can understand is some sort of ray that extends from Hashem. That's why it says that what does they take pleasure in? Ziv. And what does Ziv mean? The radiance, not Hashem Himself. Because Hashem Himself no one can grasp. But Hashem Himself, less machshavat tfisa beklal. No one can understand, no mind can understand, can grasp Hashem, not in this world and not in any world. The only way that someone can grasp Hashem, ki'im, kasher tfisa mislabeshas b'teira mitzvisa, the only way that you can connect with Hashem, Hashem Himself, the very essence of Hashem, is when Hashem is found as Hashem is found in Torah mitzvahs, azai tfisa bahen, then you're grasping Hashem. Umislabeshes b'Kadosh Baruch Hu mamish, and you're being enclosed by the Eibishter himself. Because Hashem and Torah is one. When I'm learning Torah, I'm connecting to Hashem himself. When I do a mitzvah, I'm connecting to Hashem himself.
That's why it has to be Olam Hazeh.
Olam Hazeh. And that's the deeper meaning of schar mitzvah mitzvah. The reward of a mitzvah is a mitzvah. Imagine a person comes up with the cure for cancer. The cure. What's it called? Immunization. That takes a vaccine. There you go. A vaccine. There's no more cancer in this world. And it's successful. It's proven. It's tried. And he gets the Nobel Prize for it. And he's taken, where's it? In Sweden? Where's it given out?
Sweden.
In Sweden. And he's taken to Sweden. And he's standing there on the stage and he's getting his prize. How anticlimactic is the prize? The prize is almost meaningless. How can you compare the prize that he gets with what he actually did?
There's no price.
No price.
What?
No price.
You can't be. The prize is what he did. You're going to give a prize. That's not a prize. You're going to give a prize for that. It's silly. In a way, it's silly you're going to give a prize to that. Because nothing can match
The benefits.
the pleasure of and the satisfaction of that itself. Schar mitzvah means you're going to go to Olam Haba to get your schar. You know what? You're going to get to Olam Haba, and you know what you're going to find out over there? That the biggest reward was what you accomplished when you did the mitzvah. You connected to Hashem. Because you can't do that there. In terms of pleasure, the pleasure there is unbelievable and great and incredible. That's the pleasure. But in terms of the magnitude of the accomplishment, and if what you're looking to do is to connect to Hashem, that's the mitzvah, that's the Torah. Nothing can compare to that. Inside, and even though the Torah is dressed in physical garments, in other words, the Torah as it is in its essence isn't, as we mentioned, isn't about oxes and donkeys and all the other physical things that we have, but everything started in spiritual, and then it devolved till it becomes the physical Torah that we have. Says the Alter Rebbe, this is, for example, like someone who hugs the king. It makes no difference. In other words, if you're looking in terms of the closeness and connection to the king, it makes no difference. If the king is hugging you, if you're hugging the king and the king is wearing one garment, whether he's wearing many garments. In other words, imagine, does it make a difference whether it's summer or the winter? You say like this: if I'm hugging the king in the summer, so he's only wearing a t-shirt, so I'm close to the king. If I'm hugging him in the winter because he's also wearing a jacket and a coat, so I don't have that closeness. That's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Why? All that counts is the fact that the body of the king is inside there. And the same thing is with the Torah. The same thing if the king is hugging you. Even though that there might be a sleeve and another sleeve, it makes no difference. Because the king is in there. And the same thing is in Torah. Even though that the Torah that we have it's in several garments, it's not the way it started off originally, it makes no difference. The king is inside there. So when we're hugged by the king, when we're learning Torah and doing mitzvahs, it makes no difference how many garments there is. The main thing is that the king is inside there. Kameshikosova says in the pasuk, that I am hugged by Hashem's right arm. Shehi Torah. How are we hugged? This is a reference to Torah. Shenidna miyimin, which was given from Hashem's right hand. Right? Shehi bechinas chesed umayim. That the Eibishter's kindness is chesed and mayim, as we mentioned earlier. The Torah is compared to water, and that comes from the right hand. And we have a few minutes left, so I'll give a little vart on the parsha, which is somewhat related to something we're talking about. It says in this week's parsha, it says, "Vayavidu Mitzrayim es bnei Yisrael befarach." That the Egyptians made the Jewish people, they made them work befarach. What does the word befarach mean? What is beperach? That's the medrash. But what does befarach literally mean?
Hard work.
Hard work. Hard work.
I thought it means like to break like a pirch and a
Well, yeah, because the word perach means it's the same thing.
Right.
Work that breaks you. But there is a halachic definition for perach. Because according to halacha, you're not allowed to give avodas perach to an eved ivri. So what is the what? Right. So the Rambam says, what is the definition of befarach? He says avodah she'ein la kitzva ve'ein la tiyalas, which means two conditions. It's a work that is endless, right? It has no goal, any objective, right? Ve'ein la tiyalas, and it's pointless. It's pointless. The Nazis, Yimach Shemam, that's what they were doing. They would tell you, take the rocks up and then take them down, take them up. There is no end to it, and there's no point to it. Right. So the Mitzrayim did the same thing. They made the Yidden work befarach, and that's very and they're connected. When something has no goal, has no point, has no tiyala, so therefore ein la kitzvah, it also has no end. But when something has a goal, so that it has an end. The two are interconnected. When something has a goal, so it ends when that goal is reached. So the Mitzrayim says, "Vayevidu b'nei Yisrael Mitzrayim befarach leYidden." The Mitzrayim made the Yidden work befarach. They gave them this work which was endless and pointless, because the point wasn't any objective. The point was to make them work. And it says, "Vayimararu es chayehem." The next words are in the pasuk that they made bitter their lives. What is the life of a Yid? The life of a Yid is the neshama. They embittered their neshamas. How did they embitter their neshamas? So there's a beautiful explanation from the Rebbe on this. The Rebbe says like this: the emes is that all work in this world, in Elam Haza, has to have a kitzvah and a tiyalos, has to have a point and an end. And sometimes we make the mistake that when we're working, we're thinking that we're going to work endless hours and there is no end to it, and we think that we'll make more money that way, and that's ridiculous and that's silly. Because the Eibishter is the one that predetermines and decides how much we're going to earn. So therefore our work has to have a kitzvah, it has to have an end, and it has to have a point, and that's it. Where is their legitimate avodah she'ein la kitzvah ve'ein la tiyalas? Where is their legitimate work which has no point? Which has no end and has no point? That's the neshama. That's the domain of the neshama. When we serve Hashem, it's avodah she'ein la kitzvah, there is no end to it. Ve'ein la tiyalas, there is no point to it. Because we're not doing it for any point. We're not trying to derive any tiyalas. We're not trying to derive any benefit or gain from it. And that is the neshama. If you go to the neshama and you ask it, what do you want? It says avodas parach. My deepest desire is to serve Hashem in a way that has no end and no objective, just to serve Hashem. And when the Mitzrayim took that and they transferred it in Olam Haza, and they made the vayimaru es chayim, they embittered the neshamas because they're stealing. This is an avodah she'ein la kitzvah ve'ein la tiyalas that belongs to the neshama. And when a Yid is made to use this type of work in Olam Haza that embitters the neshama is saying, why are you encroaching on my domain when avodah she'ein la kitzvah ve'ein la tiyalas is mine? And this is really connected to what we're talking about over here. And in our life also, we have to be careful that when we work, that the work doesn't become work she'ein la kitzvah ve'ein la tiyalas. We have to realize the only thing in life that has no end and no objective is Torah mitzvahs. Everything else has to have an end and a very clearly defined objective, and that's all. And that's very connected to talking about. We were talking about the nefesh alikis. That's really talking about the levushim, and its desire to do mitzvahs, and its desire to do mitzvahs is not because it can get into Elam Haba, because as we see already, Elam Haba is to a certain extent it's a downgrade. In other words, in terms of the pleasure that you get there and the spiritual experiences, to say it's an upgrade is the understatement of the century. In other words, it's an upgrade. You can't compare. But in terms of the importance of our work over here, in terms of being able to connect to Hashem, that's over here, that's in this world. It has no ti'elas, it has no kitzvah, and that's our avodah, and that's the pleasure of our neshama.